Welcome to Season 6 of the Working Audio Tools podcast with myself, Ed Thorne, and fellow YouTuber Paul Third. If you're wondering how we decide what goes into what season from the other, well, I'll explain. In the last season, we were talking about master bus processing, mix bus processing, mastering, and Atmos breakdowns, and we did some mix comparisons, of course. This season, we're going to go in a slightly different direction, and we want to discuss combinations of equipment that we would buy if we had a set budget. This is going to be based on our user experience of products that we've tried and tested on our YouTube channels. And in this first week's episode, we are going to be talking about the ideal combination of products for mixing on headphones and mixing on speakers if we only had a budget of £1,000. Now, just to clarify, that is £1,000 for a headphone setup and or £1,000 for a speaker setup. So, Paul, controversially, I've got something that's going to surprise you a little bit later, I think.
Okay, good.
But I think you should dive in first. Being the headphone person, what combination of products for a budget of £1,000 would you recommend people if they want to become full-time mix engineers?
Now, I'm also going to be a little bit controversial. If you watch my channel, then it won't be. But anybody that doesn't, I might be a bit like, that's a bit odd. But I've got a video on my channel talking about why it isn't really advisable to mix on just one pair of headphones. Now, I tried to get this bang on budget, and I did. It's bang on budget. So headphones wise, I would suggest two headphones. One would be the Hyphamin Sindara, because they're planar magnet headphones, and I always advise everybody to use planar magnet headphones because the low end is just absolutely spot on most planar magnet headphones. There's a podcast episode that I did with Emre Çelik whilst Ed was away on holiday, and we talked all about how to do this professionally on headphones. So we'll leave a link in the description, and it's a really important episode so you can kind of figure out why we would advise planars over dynamics. Dynamics are still great, it's just that planars, when you get them really good ones, you understand why very quick. You can get them for around £240. The Hyphamin Sindaras have great low end, they've got really nice sound stage, transients are great, and for the price, I'd say they're probably the best priced headphones at that price range. And then the second pick would be these, the Olo S5X. Now, I was toying between these and Slate VSX. Now, I've never used Slate VSX, as much as I know Emre swears by it and many other people I know swear by it. I've not used them, so I'm not way to advise something that I've never used. So in my mixing, I mix with these and I mix with D-Cynic Realphones, which is what I use for all of my kind of outside the studio references. So I use it for laptops, phone speakers, even other studios. Then they've also got Bluetooth speakers, they've got clubs, they've got bars, they've even got the front of house engineer in a festival.
Just explain for those who don't know what D-Sonic Realphones is, although I'm guessing from what you've just said, some people will pick up that it's similar to Sonarworks calibration profiles for headphones, but explain more.
You can use it for calibration, but their calibration is tailored directly for room simulations. So Realphones is all about simulating, a speakers in a room or a certain speaker. At first, it was kind of more studios, we're trying to replicate certain studios and certain speakers. So they'd have NS10s, and they'd have I think there was General X, and there was maybe Adams or someone else, and then they had the big massive tannoys and stuff like that, and the big massive mains. But in recent times, in their newest update, they focused more on kind of real world speakers, again what your kind of main average consumer is going to listen on, which I have lent into a lot more because that is more important to me in terms of translation. So now many people get confused and they think that you can use their EQ calibration without the room simulations. Don't do it, because their EQ calibrations are based on an anechoic chamber, which allows them to then add in the room. If we think about Sonarworks and stuff like that, theirs is a hybrid. I've got a video talking all about why I don't advise Sonarworks for headphones. I use them for speakers, but not for headphones. So Realphones is a really, really good package. However, Slate VSX is an all-in-one. So you get all kind of the same benefits as Realphones, and the Slate VSX are tailored specifically to work with the software. So it's an all-in-one package. However, the quality of the headphones themselves aren't great. And so they are dynamic. You get really good dynamics. It's just that, I've seen them and I've seen people like show like the rigidity of them, and I'm just like, wow, those things are going to break. Yeah, so with these are built like a tank, and they also come with their own kind of EQ plugin, which gives them their own calibration. So every single headphone is shipped out by Olo with like measured into their own calibration EQ. Now, I use them with real phones because I just feel that these are absolutely amazing with real phones. I've tried tons of different headphones with real phones, but these S5X are made specifically for use with like room simulations and also like for mixing like immersively. I just think that with real phones, everything just sounds the most realistic I've ever heard. But I'm like, Jesus, like sometimes I forget, I'm like, oh, got these on. And it's quite crazy.
Now, unfortunately, I can't comment on any of the headphones Paul is talking about, other than the expensive Ananda Nanos and HE1000s, which I'm sure we'll talk about in another episode.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
this episode goes well, we may do another one with a higher budget set of combinations. So you've got 2 sets of headphones there. What are you powering these with?
I am powering these with the Topping E4X4, which genuinely I am using right now. I am genuinely listening to Ed's beautiful voice and my voice through the Topping E4X4. It's what I use on the podcast, it's what I use for my YouTube videos. And the headphone amp in the Topping E2X2 and the E4X4 are stellar. Again,
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
for the money, it is mind-blowingly good.
£150 for the E2X2 is unbelievable. And with that, not also do you get a really, really good headphone amp, you get, a good DAC as well. I would put the DAC, performance-wise, comparable to an Audient to my ears. Now, the reason I went for E4X4 is obviously because I've got 2 sets of headphones. You've got 2 sets of headphone outs on the E4X4, but on the E2X2, you've only got 1. So E4X4 would win here.
I was going to ask you that, right? And that is a very logical answer.
Of course,
in terms of DAC, I'd put the Topping as superior to the Audient.
Yeah, it's close, but I would say like Audient, i.e. like ID44. Like I would say like that, like Aurea and the E4X4 are on par with each other, I'd say.
Okay.
They're very, very good. But again, it's like, I've always thought the Audient ID44 was quite good for conversion-wise, DAC-wise, but put all that together, you have got a really, really, really amazing headphone setup. Again, if you use Auto EQ, then again, you can EQ your headphones to Harman, which I always suggest. Again, there's videos that I've done all about mixing on headphones. But if you've got real phones and you've got these, then you'll have all of the tools to get a great headphone mix. You'll have an interface that can power it. And not only that, but you can do way more, because with the E4X4 you've got 4 mic pre's, and the ADC is really good as well. So you can even use some analog gear because you've got your 2 outputs. So you can even run 1 analog unit. You can even run a pre if you wanted to. You can run a 1073. So for $1,000, you know what I mean? That's a pretty damn good setup.
It's a strong lineup. It's a strong lineup. I would just throw a spanner in those works, which is that out of the Topping and the Audient, I think the Audient are noticeably better preamps. Right, however, we are solely here talking about mixing.
Yeah, totally.
If we wanted to combine recording and mixing to a high quality, maybe we'd come up with a different combination, but who knows, because that's not in this video just yet. Moving on to my combinations, mine's really simple. I considered the Topping E2X2 because that's the one that I've tried and tested on my channel. And the headphone amplifier really is, and the conversion really is as good as Paul is talking about. But I went straight for the jugular with this and kept it simple and thought, do you know what? I'm going to go in for the Topping DX7 Pro Plus.
He went big, bigger go home,
yep,
God's sake.
Which is a standalone DAC and headphone amplifier, which is actually currently powering my whole system. I've got mine connected via AES from my Apollo X16. The Topping is then, because the conversion is noticeably better than the Apollo's, and that's then feeding Trinnov, which is feeding the PSIs. So that's coming in at about £700. You might get that in a Black Friday sale at £600, which is what I did. And with that, I would recommend some of the things Paul's mentioned, except I haven't tried them, so I can't. But I am going to go in for the Sennheiser HD490s. There's a full review on my channel about these. There's a Pro package and a Pro Plus package where you get a few extra bits, but the Pro package comes with the mixing cups, which is what I prefer for mixing on. And for me, for the money, again, these are so good. They're £330 and they come with their own Dear VR Sennheiser Sennheiser version of the Dear VR reality studio. It's one of those studio softwares. I'm not sure how much you can deal with crossfeed in it, but it's got the translations, different setups, 2-way, 3-way speakers, different devices. There's also a curve for the headphones specifically to Harman. You can tweak a few bits. It's quite limited, if I'm honest, the Dear VR software, but it's free. It comes with it. Stick it on the door and you can A/B the headphones with the Harman curve and without it for reference. So coming in at £1,030, we have the Topping DX7 Pro Plus and the Sennheiser HD490 Pros.
Now, one thing I will like to mention about the DX7 Pro Plus is obviously I've got it. It was me that got Ed into it. And it is, in my opinion, the best converter on the market. I've heard the Lynx Hilo. It's very, very transparent, but I would say the DX7 Pro Plus is going to be as transparent. It's just amazing. It's beat every single converter that I've got in my studio.
Bold statement.
Yep. And
how does it compare to M's Lavery Gold then?
Well, the interesting thing is we listened to the Lavery Gold and we listened to the Hilo, and I couldn't tell a difference at all. It was only at the clip-in stage I could hear the difference in. When you get to that level of conversion, I would say there isn't really much difference, because you're talking, they're squeezing the most infinitesimal levels of quality out. I mean, you've got like inaudible, signal to noise ratio, distortion, the Topping DX7 Pro Plus has got absolutely like nearly immeasurable jitter. It's just amazing. But the great thing about the DX7 Pro Plus is that it's got 3 headphone outs and you can power all 3 of them. So, there's times where I've got the HE1000 SEs, I've got the Ananda Nanos, and I'll have these as well. So you've got the 4-pin XLR, you have the 1/4 inch, and then you've got, the 3.5 mil?
It's the mini jack, yeah.
Yeah, the mini jack, yeah. So you can have 3 powered at once, and again, you don't lose any quality. Again, amp-wise, it's got all the power to power really any headphone. It's not as much power as, say, like the Topping L30 Mark II. It's a standalone amp, but you would only need something like the L30 Mark II if you had something like the Dan Clarks, which are like, even when I was in M Studio, I was at max. I can't remember what it was we were using. I was like, fuck, this is maxed out, and I could still want to get it louder. So in most cases, the Topping DX7 Pro Plus is going to power really any HiFiMAN, to where you need it. It's got all the power, again, for your headphone, for your speakers as well. It's just incredible. And it's got tons of different inputs as well. Like, it's amazing. And it's got a remote. Fucking amazing.
It's got a remote, and it's got the Bluetooth feature where you can sync up your phone via Bluetooth to the device,
input,
and play music off your phone through it, which is really useful, I'm sure, and it will be useful with clients as well.
And one last thing, sorry, I forgot to mention this. Can opener, that's the last thing I forgot. Crossfeed, because Ed did mention Crossfeed. I use Can Opener. It is a plugin. I can't remember, is it like 30 quid or something like that? Or 50 quid? I can't remember.
I believe it's $80.
For fuck's sake. Well, definitely get it on Black Friday or whenever they've got a sale on. But I've been using Can Opener for years. Emra uses it. Many other people use it. It's a very good algorithm. I just use the Mixing Engineers preset in that, and it does the job. Helps me with translation. However, there has been talk of another manufacturer that does hardware crosstalk that we're going to hopefully be able to hear for ourselves. We can't say too much about it, but I'll be quite interested to compare the differences with those. So even I am like teetering on, a little bit more experimentation, but I'd say that's it. You've got your headphones, you've got your headphone amp, you've got your EQ, you've got room simulations, and you've got crosstalk. And really, me and Ed's both cover that. So sorry, Ed, to interrupt, but yeah, that's it. I'd say we can now finally move on to speakers. And unbelievably, I still can't believe, Ed, that even your setup, with arguably the best conversion, in my opinion, or one of the best conversion units on the market for under £1,000.
£1,030, but save yourself a plug-in and you can afford that extra.
Imagine saying that like 5-10 years ago. Looking crazy. Absolutely amazing.
Hey there, Ed here. You may recognise my voice from doing all the other DistroKid advert segments. This time I didn't want to just do a typical advert talking about stuff to do with DistroKid. I actually wanted to give you my feedback about the service because I genuinely do use DistroKid for uploading my music. And I know Paul does, and it turns out Dan Worrell does as well. I've used DistroKid since 2019. As you can see on the screen, I have 6 releases so far. It is genuinely super easy to use. The tracks get into Spotify within 24 hours, which is remarkable. Apple Music takes a little bit longer. I'd suggest giving that 10 to 14 days. The hyperfollow links are really useful for advanced promotion of your tracks, and the promo cards are really great visual aids for social media promotion. Ooh, I particularly like that one. DistroKid collect all the royalties from your streaming services, and here you can find an itemized breakdown of where all your income has come from. There's also a DistroKid referral where you can save your friends $10 per sign-up by creating your own VIP referral link. So, moving on to mixing on speakers. If we had a budget for £1,000 and we were purely mixing on speakers, we didn't need to worry about recording and inputs. What would your setup be, Mr. Third?
Now, this one is going to maybe surprise people, but it won't surprise the people that have done this, in my opinion, correctly. So I've had to go for cheaper speakers because what I'll do is I'll talk about the speakers last, because that's kind of, a little bit irrelevant right now, because what I've spent most of the budget, well, not most of the budget, but a quarter. I spent a quarter of the budget on acoustic treatment. So I went for GIK's 1200 by 600 bass traps. They're 100mm bass traps. Both corners, front left, front right, because that's normally the best place for it. And then the rest.
How much are they coming in at? Aren't they about £180 each?
No, they were £95 each, and that's for a 1200 by 600,
including that, because their website is deceptive.
Yeah, I know. I was annoying because I had it cheaper, and I was
it's very annoying.
It's £95 including that. But honestly, see just those two alone, you'd be amazed at how much that's going to really sort out your room. It's going to sort out.
So you would go over corner treatment before first reflection points.
Yeah.
That is controversial, Mr.
Yeah,
Third.
but again, I think, that's something I picked up from Acoustics Insider, that, it's really a lot of the issues can be solved by your first 2 bass traps and in their front facing corners. And especially with those ones that I've chosen, I've actually got them in my control room. I made, in here, this room, everything was made by me, by hand, DIY. But in the control room, I've got the 1200 by 600, and I've got 2 of them because it's so annoying. This is the dim side of having a studio. It's fucking 3.5 meter high. Cost us even more money in fucking acoustic treatment. But the difference that it made, not only in the bass, because it's not just the bass trap, and it's, again, you think about in your corners, in terms of the reflections, again, you're better at talking about this stuff, Ed. I don't know why, but you always seem to describe it better than me. But the way I've always kind of thought about the corners is that it almost acts a little bit like an amplifier. The reflections will bounce into the corners, and then they'll kind of do that. For anybody that's listening,
it's a low end hotspot in the corner, isn't it?
But anybody that's listening to it, I don't know how I could how I could describe this, Ed. I don't know. That's I'm not.
Paul is gesticulating wildly, risking fireworks going off in the background of his Riverside camera screen there, as we had last week, that we can't replicate.
Yeah, so I'd have the 2 bass traps, and then the rest would be foam. So my first reflection points would be foam.
Foam. He's used the F word live on the podcast,
mate. It's a budget.
Actually,
I've got a budget
I don't disagree with you. There's a lot of snobbery towards foam, and quite frankly, it can fuck off. Because in my old studio, in my room, I totally understand things above 2K. Foam is really good at absorbing flutter and kind of high end frequency issues in the top end. So yeah, I don't disagree with foam, but if you want foam to do anything below 1,000 hertz, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so that's why I've got all the main bass energy considered in that area here. So it'd be your front corners with really, really, and GIK are really good. They're very, very good.
I've just got a few this week. I've got more coming later. We should maybe do an episode on this because
I know.
Yeah, It is actually very good stuff.
So, and again, that's the cheaper version as well. You can get even more expensive ones. So the side reflections, your first reflections, that would be the foam. But again, that's the best it would do. Obviously, if we had more money, then obviously you would get like an acoustic panel, again from GIK.
Okay, so you're going into very specific details, but you would set aside a budget of your £1,000
yeah,
for room correction. Obviously,
Quarter
what
at least.
you need in your studio is very subject to your dimensions, wall materials, etc. Okay, so room acoustic treatment. Yep, I agree with that. That is a good point. What's next?
Right, then it would be SonarWorks, because
controversial as well.
I use it because at the end of it was funny. I was speaking to Andrish the other day, and he's got the Dynaudios, and he was talking to me about how he had his Dynaudios a little bit wider using a DIY stand he made, and then he put them on his desk and made it narrower. And he was like, I just kind of feel like I'm getting a bit of a better sound. I think he said he was feeling he was getting better bass response, and I was like, why don't you measure your room? If you measure your room, then it's kind of going to be able to show you if you've got any nulls in these positions. It doesn't have to be SonarWorks. You can use Room EQ Wizard. It's absolutely free, but you do need a measurement mic.
Yeah.
So, and again, he was like, no, and you get many people that are like, no, I just prefer to learn the room. I'm not that type of person, but especially because I've got more than one speaker. So, and I know that MSM's very like that as well, because he's using more than one speaker. He wants them all to have the same like tonal sound. Really, all you're hearing is the sound of the speakers. Now, he doesn't use SonarWorks. He uses Trinov like Ed. But obviously, I've not got $3,500 to pay for like
that ain't fitting into this budget.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So SonarWorks is a good one. It's one I know well, and I actually do like the results that it gives me, because my control room, has a low mid kind of build up in it, kind of a little bit similar to what Ed's has got. And I find that
let me just give some information to the listeners here, because when Paul says he's got a low mid build up, the bastard means he's got about 2.4 decibels of low end build up, and the entire extent of his frequency deviation is about 3 decibels maximum
in the control
either
room,
side of Unity. Magic, I tell him it's a fluke. Magically, he's got one of the best rooms in the country. It's unbelievable. Paul,
no, the Atmos room. I'd say the Atmos room's one of it would be like, you're talking like the deviations of like a dB, 2 dB, even all the way up from like 40 to 20k. But my control room, as Ed said, is about like 3.5, maybe 4k max. And again, it's kind of flat. Even I've got the control room flat almost from like 1k onwards. And that's a lot of acoustic foam. Would you believe it? Like I did, again, I was on a budget and I got as much foam as I could, and I was genuinely doing clap tests and finding flutter echoes, and specifically sticking certain foam in it to take out the flutter echoes, and it was helping. I could still get it better, and having that Atmos room is an absolute killer for me, because I know that that's, in my opinion, how my room should sound, and it's like crazy when I'm listening to speakers in there.
So foam on the first reflection points then?
Yeah, I've got them left and right, yeah.
Okay.
But I've also got behind it, because it looks good, but it does actually work quite well, is I've got the slats, like the Thomann ones, where they've got like the kind of, they're not even wooden slats, but they're just like to make it look like wooden slats.
What, the diffusers?
No, they're absorbers. They're absorbers. I know which ones you mean. Basically, just think of it like it's like little vinyl strips of wood to make it look like it's like slatted wood, but it's actually like Thomann, like high density, like thick, whatever foam it is underneath. No, like it's really, really thick and really high density.
So it's foam behind the wood.
Yeah, but it's like really, it's not like the foam that we would think of.
That's
like
diffuser and absorber combination things.
Yeah, I just know that like it looks nice behind the desk.
Yeah. No, it does. Yeah.
But it does work quite well. It doesn't work as well as a bass trap, but I think it works down. I think it's like 300 hertz and above, which is decent. But what SonarWorks does for me is I got sidetracked, as usual, is that with the Callies and the new edifiers. And even when I had the INUNF, I've moved that now. Laura's got that now. It's just like, why have I got this whole fucking expensive system now?
Wife.
Just at my desk. I'm just like, well, I could sell it. She's like, no, I'll have it. I'm like, okay, cool. And also the PreSonus Era Studio 8s, which I use for tracking. When I go and go to the three of them and alternate, I'm not getting distracted by the differences of that speaker interacting with the room. Because speakers, again, interact with the rooms differently, the type of speaker, but especially the difference in the speaker position.
And the location. Yeah, so which one sounds best, or have you managed to get them all sounding similar?
Here's the thing. Tonally, I know Sonarworks has done the job where I can switch them on like between them and be like, tonally, they're all like the same.
Yeah.
But the characteristics are different. So, I mean, those edifiers, oh my God, there's a reason why they're the flagship edifiers. And it's funny because, like, honestly, the Chinese are fucking taking over audio. Like, you've got Topping, Hyphaman, and see these edifier speakers. They're like...
Is Edifier Chinese?
Yeah, they're like 800 quid, and that's their flagship, and I don't even need a sub. I just quickly... I was like, see, after I calibrated it, I already kind of knew they didn't need a sub, and calibrated it, took out the low mud, and I was like, Jesus, I've never had a pair of two-ways that are 6.5 inch, and you don't need a sub. And then I go...
What do they extend down to?
38 hertz.
Wow, that's good. I mean,
and Sonarworks proves it as well. Like it actually goes a little bit below. I was getting I think it was like minus 2 dB at like fucking minus 35 hertz or something like that. It was crazy.
So would you say like the Topping DX7 Pro plus headphone amp and DAC is a £700 unit, but it does compete with a Lynx Hilo 2, which is £4,000.
Yeah.
Would you say with those edifiers, it's a similar relative quality? So if they're £800 a pair, you could argue it's competing with $4,000 speakers.
I would need you, and there will be a time that Ed does eventually come down to the studio at some point. That's what I kind of want you to be the judge of, because you've listened to all these speakers, and I know that you've got a really good ear where you'd sit down straight away and go, that's giving me something that's similar to that, or that's reminiscent of that. That does it really well there. You know what I mean? Okay. You've got that kind of plethora of, all right, speaker
we'll put that in my tour of Scotland video when I eventually get my ass up there.
But yeah, so in terms of the budget, as great as these edifiers sound, and the planar magnetic tweeters as well, it's like, mwah, mwah, mwah. Oh, it's just like, and the Kali IN5s are 3-ways, coaxial 3-ways.
Yeah.
But I prefer the edifier 2-ways. So I'm like, really surprising.
That coaxial technology is mind-blowing.
I know it is, in the 3-ways.
Doesn't make sense to me, but it just... So back to the budget. You've got a quarter of your budget on room... acoustic treatment, a quarter of your budget on room and speaker calibration.
That's half.
What have we got in terms of speakers and an actual interface?
Right, so the rest of it is going on the speakers, which budget-wise, I had to go for the Kali LP6s because I didn't have enough budget for the Kali IN5s, unfortunately. If I had a choice, I would have went for the IN5s over the LP6s. However, when I'm in my Atmos room, I've got the LP8s as the surrounds, LP6s up top. Now, I know the LP8s very well, and when they're in a well-treated room, honestly, the LP8s do sound great. I was mixing a Mark Daniel Nelson multi-track in it because I was doing Atmos stuff, and I was just like, you know what, I'll put that on the speakers as I'm in this room. And I was just doing it in stereo with the Kali LP8s, and I got used to them very quickly. And I was very easily going between Mark's mix, A, B, and I was like, wow, these are actually good speakers. You know what I mean? I'm like, these I could work with these. I could work with the IN5s a little bit easier, in my opinion, due to like the mid-range separation. But I was working on them in between. Like I'd say like after 20 minutes, I forgot that I was mixing on £400 speakers. And that's the hard thing with speakers is that to get a pair, even like when we're thinking like budget, £400 for a pair of speakers plus stands and cables, because there's a bundle I think that Thomann does, a Kali LP6 bundle, which is like £400. That's genuinely like kind of as good as you're going to get like price wise. I mean, you could try and go for smaller speakers, but I mean, I could have went for the LP8s, but I went for the LP6s because LP8s, you need to have a certain type of room. Like for 8-inch speakers, I'd say maybe 4x3 is like the minimum that you would get away with 8-inch. If you've got smaller than say 12 square meters, I would go for the 6. But the only issue with these the lower down, the low mid driver size, is that you're losing more low end and you're losing that low end extension. That's the only thing. Like the edifiers are crazy because I'm like, wow, I don't need a sub. This is mental. But with the LP5, the IN5s definitely need a sub. And the LP8s, I would say, it's got that low end, but it's nowhere near as good as a sub. You can tell you're listening to a pair of two-way speakers. But I'd say the LP6s would work best in most rooms. You're saving a little bit of money. That includes the stands, and it includes your TRS or XLR
That's a good
cables.
deal.
Yeah.
And what's the interface?
Again, due to budget permitting, I went for the topping E2 X2 because I'm only needing the line outs. So that way, again, you've still got a really good. If you're using headphones, you've still got a really good, headphone amp. And again, the DAC conversion is good. Again, it's funny because I think because I've got the topping DX7 Pro Plus, what is actually people would listen to and go, wow, this is like stellar performing DAC. I'm like, when you're up with the Lynxes, the Helos, the toppings and the Prisms and stuff, because you can hear it, it's not that like they're not good. It's just that this stuff is like shows you what you're missing. In my opinion, I could definitely hear it. But I think with all that together, you should get a good sound because you're going to have decent room treatment. You've got your bass trapping sorted in your front. That should take out a lot of the reflection, sort out a bit of the bass. You've got foam to try and kind of cover as many reflection points issues in your room. You've got good, decent DAC conversion, especially for that money. And the LP6s, I've got them, use them, I can mix on them. And I would definitely say get them over a pair of fucking Yamaha HS fucking 5s or whatever. I'd say Kali's are better. Now, obviously, when you go down that budget, there is things like with the edifiers and even the Kali IN5s, I can hear cabinet resonance. And when you hear cabinet resonance, it's something that is quite hard to unhear. And even just the differences, like they use paper mid-drivers and again soft dome tweeters, and to my ears, I've always preferred aluminium cone for the low mid-drivers, and these planar tweeters are mental. Soft dome tweeters are very neutral, and the paper cones are very neutral. With that, I would definitely say you'd be able to get good mixes out there. You've got the room calibrated the best you can. You say what you want about Sonarworks. Again, the IK is a good option, but I've not used it. So that would be me, Ed. And it's under £1,000. What would you do? Because this is going to be more important for Ed, because Ed is theoretically the speaker man, and he's got way more experience with speakers than me, got a much more expensive speaker setup than me. So it'll be interesting to hear what he would do under £1,000. This will be quite interesting.
Well, I struggled with this, I'll be honest, because a pair of speakers within budget to buy an interface and the other item that I wanted to discuss, was limiting. And if you go on shops and look at pairs of speakers for under £500 or £600, pretty much the only thing that comes up is Focals or Yamaha HS, whatever's the Eva, the Presonus Erises, and a few other bits, and Kali's as well. Now, my experience, I've got experience on the Yamahas, the Adam TV5s, various other things. I looked at squeezing in some Neumanns, controversially, but the 120s are way over the budget now.
Yeah, they are, yeah, totally.
You can get some 80s for about £1,000 with the MA1 software. That's the DSP version of the Neumann KH80s, which, if anyone's seen my video comparing the Neumann MA1 system, Sound ID, Arc Studio from IK Media, and Trinnov, IK Multimedia, sorry, and Trinnov it's interesting. It is a very good system, but that was blowing the budget out new. So it made me think, what about secondhand? And
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to go do that.
And I have to say, I am an advocate of buying some things secondhand now, because I used to buy everything new and had the live sound business. I bought everything new, but that was just because I needed absolute reliability. I couldn't afford to risk something being badly treated before I bought it. In the studio, though, it's not quite as essential. However, in my list, there is nothing secondhand. But if you did want secondhand stuff, I have had some good experiences on Reverb, and I have to highly recommend Sam from Make Noise Pro Audio. If you don't follow him on Instagram, Make Noise Pro Audio on Instagram, definitely do so, because he's just got a wonderful business, part exchanging and buying and selling secondhand gear. It's incredible, the stuff that he gets through. Talking about brand new gear, I had to draw on my broadcasting live sound experiences, and I found that the Genelec 8010s are £540 a pair. Now, Genelecs are remarkable because they have this incredibly consistent sonic character across all the speakers. Kind of like Neumann do. Credit to Neumann, they have a very similar thing. I can't say the same thing about PSIs. The PSI 3-ways that I've got sound amazing. The 2-ways, if I'm honest, I'm not really impressed by. Amphions are another one. Very similar sound across all the frequency spectrum. But the Genelecs are probably where I first noticed it. Now, the Genelec 8010s are really small little compact speakers. Great for a home studio. Great for a bedroom studio. They do only extend down to 67 hertz, which is going to be a problem for some people, but then my suggestion would be buy a set of headphones as well and mix all your low end on a set of headphones. So that's £540. Now, I didn't bother suggesting any acoustic treatment, but that is a very good shout. So that's not in my budget. But for example, if you're in a room with windows and you need some dampening of the top end, close your curtains, hang duvets over cupboards and, whatever you can. There are ways you can do it relatively cheaply. And the foam stuff, there's a company called Procoustics on Amazon that do some very
stuff from
good quality, right? Good quality foam. That's what I had in my old studio, which used to look good. And like I said, above 2K, it actually does work pretty well. So not factoring in any acoustic treatment, I did factor in £300 for IK Multimedia's Arc Studio 4 because I have used Sonarworks extensively for many years in several different rooms, and I've used Arc 4, and I have to say, it blows Sound ID away. I think the phase coherence and the time alignment and the clarity it delivers is absolutely brilliant. Sound ID for me sounds smeared across all the frequency spectrum, and anything above 6 decibels of attenuation, and you can hear it. I think it does weird things.
Definitely above 6 dB, yeah.
The Arc Studio 4 for £300. It's an external hardware box, so it's not taking up CPU power. It's genuinely very, very good. And then the interface, and this is the controversial bit, Paul.
Don't say Scarlett.
Why?
Because...
I'm kidding. But it is a Scarlett 2i2 4th generation. Okay. Because, although, yes, it's well documented, I think the headphone amplifier sucks. The conversion on that unit is Focusrite's flagship RedNet converters. Okay. So the conversion for the speakers is great. The conversion for the headphone amp is great, but the headphone amp is terrible. So the clarity you get from the recording the audio and the output is genuinely very good. Those converters are very good. It's just the headphone amp lets it down. But we're talking about speakers, mixing on speakers, so that is irrelevant. Now, the other thing with the Gen 4 is, in my opinion, them digitizing the preamps was a mistake to introduce smart gain and safe mode, which avoids clipping. Because there's something about digital preamps that I think just sounds flatter than fully analog preamps. So I will controversially say that the Scarlett Gen 3 preamps sound better than the Gen 4s. That is after a lot of testing in my studio. However, again, this is purely for the converters on the DAC for the speakers. So Scarlett Gen 4 2i2 £170, Genelec 810s £540, Arc Studio 4 £300 are coming in at £1,010. Plus, as Paul has said, if you can allocate £100 or a couple £100 towards room acoustic treatment, you will get further benefits from Arc Studio 4.
Now, I think what we do have to wrap up the episode is probably the things that we have probably left aside, because there's a few things that we could have advised, but again, it depends on what you've got. So a big thing many people would say is, you didn't put in a desk, for example. Like, you've all got desks in your room. You don't need a desk, like an actual studio desk, like we have them. But again, when I was in my house, I just had a desk. I know people that just have like standard desks, and they actually just use speaker stands. So I think from a workflow perspective, like, it looks good for clients. It's really good for workflow. Again, I could fit all the 500 stuff. I could fit the speakers on. It's really easy, but you don't need it. That's why me and Ed have decided not to put it in the budget, because you can just get a speaker stand. And then
I mean, if we're going to go that far, it could be like, we haven't included a computer. It's like, well, yeah, go and buy a Mac for £1,000. Good luck with that.
Totally. But yeah, I think that was the only thing that I thought that maybe people could argue, but it's not essential because you can just use a fucking table. You know what I mean? You can just get a table from Amazon, use that. But again, if you are using if you're spending £540 fucking pounds on speakers or £400, please make sure you've got at least decent stands, please, because obviously if you put them on a crappy table, and again, know what we should have put in, Ed?
Isolation pucks.
Because I've got the ISO pucks.
Yep, I just thought that as well. ISO acoustic frames or pucks, yeah, because they do make a huge difference if you've got speakers on a desk.
I got 8 for £60 online. I got them second hand.
The mini acoustic pucks.
I got them, and again, they were fine for my speakers. Obviously, Ed's got bigger speakers with his PSIs. And the edifiers, they've got their own pucks. It's like they've got like their own little on each corner. I'm like, oh right, okay, that's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
But with the Callies, I had to get the pucks, and they do make a difference. Like, I know what, Ed, I'm gonna say, I still had a little bit more, maybe like £50 left in the budget. I would have definitely have to go back and stick that in. If you can get the ISO pucks, it isn't bullshit, and there's a lot of good science behind it. And especially if you've got a desk and you've not got a fucking speaker stand, then, or even if you do have a speaker stand, again, you could still use the ISO pucks. But what it does show you is that you actually can get a lot of good quality for £1,000, which is crazy considering that there's people out there that'll spend, £1,500 on one 500 piece of analog, 500 series thing.
I don't know who'd be stupid enough to do that. He says, looking at his AMS RMX16, he's not used.
Yeah, and when you consider what you can get, I know it's a great. I think that was something that Warren Hewitt was always championing. We had him on the podcast in the Produce Like a Pro days when we were on there, and we had a whole episode talking about that. And he was talking about it, championing all of these like Callies and the Lewitts and all of these manufacturers that are making
really good value for money, high quality, relatively for what they are products like the audience.
No,
for the average person in their home studios. I mean, if you're talking pro end stuff, yeah, there's improvements to be had on all this gear, but for the budget, I think we've done a good job finding some combinations of gear there that's different to each other, so we can talk about it for the users, for the listeners' interest. And those are good starting points, I would say. Now, please leave your comments below the video and get in touch with us if you have any further comments, because we may extend this series and do this for an ideal budget under $5,000 and then maybe even under $10,000. I don't know.
Go Desert Island. Let's go Desert Island, Ed. Surely everybody would be interested to hear if like Paul and Ed had an unlimited budget, what we would get. Because I've got an idea what I would get.
Oh my God. Okay. So that could be a bit of a wet dream episode.
Yeah,
but
totally.
For some reason in the back of my mind, I've been listening to the Six Figure Home Studio podcast, and I've just got the gear slot siren going off in my head. But that's going to be the whole season 6. So
yeah, totally. Yeah,
we'll see how we get on. DistroKid sponsors the Working Audio Tools podcast, and 30% off your first year subscription can be found in the podcast show notes and the YouTube video description. Hyperfollow is the easiest way to place all of your content in one single place, making finding all of your content super easy for your audience. Upload artwork for your release, edit the information, and apply links to all of the streaming platforms your music is going to be available, which of course on DistroKid is potentially all of them that exist now and even in the future. Add social media buttons so your audience can find you and your latest music video. Creating a beautiful landing page with a preview of your music is easy with Hyperfollow. Hyperfollow links can be created for all of your releases, and it enables you to create pre-save links for your audience to pre-order your music before it's released. This link is shareable on all of your platforms and a great way to promote your next release, only with DistroKid. So if you're interested in any of the products that we've talked about in this video, we will put affiliate links in the description below for your convenience. If you do purchase any of your home studio gear from these links, we get a small commission, and it does help support the channel so we can keep making these videos for you, because they do take a lot of time recording, editing and producing for you guys. So hopefully you find value in it. And if you want to help us out, that is a great way to do that. If you do want to help us out further, leaving an Apple review is massively useful. And just generally leave comments and gives you feedback, because we learn a lot from you guys and we like to stay in touch and interact. On that blonde bombshell, it's been emotional. Any sign-off words, Paul?
Absolutely none. Bye-bye.